Ethan Grant had it all: a multi-million-dollar retail chain, a proud name in the business world, and a reputation as a self-made man. From growing up in a humble home to building Grant Goods from scratch, he had poured everything into his dream. But somewhere between store number 1 and store number 213, something went wrong. Lately, despite all the glowing reports from his executives, Ethan had a gut feeling that the soul of his company, the customer connection, was slipping. The spreadsheets showed growth, the profits were climbing, but he couldn't shake the unease. Numbers can lie, but people rarely do when they think no one's watching. So one chilly Tuesday morning, without alerting anyone, Ethan dressed down. In jeans, an old jacket, and a cap pulled low. He left behind his office, his driver, his title. Today, he was just another face in the crowd walking into Store 213, a suburban outlet nestled in a busy shopping district. From the outside, everything seemed perfect. The store windows were clean, the signage bright, and the promotional banners hung neatly. Inside, the scent of fresh coffee from the corner cafe filled the air, and the shelves were tidy. For a moment, Ethan let a small smile creep across his face, but that pride faded quickly. At the customer service desk, he noticed a line forming. 3 people waiting, their arms crossed, their feet tapping impatiently. Odd, he thought. The counter should never be unattended. He stepped into line behind them, pretending to be a customer himself. Several minutes passed. Then finally, a young employee, Derek, sauntered out from the back. No greeting, no apology. He slouched behind the counter, phone in hand, and barked out, "What do you want?" Ethan blinked, stunned. The woman in front of him tried to return a blender, but Derek barely looked at the receipt and brushed her off with, "Can't help you if your receipt's messed up." She left, flustered and angry. The next customer, an older man, asked for help finding an item. Derek gave a lazy wave toward the back of the store, eyes still glued to his phone. Ethan's turn came. He smiled and asked kindly, "Excuse me, could you help me check the price on this towel set?" Without even looking up, Derek pointed with his thumb. "Scanners down aisle 4. No eye contact, no effort, no care." Ethan's stomach turned. This wasn't what he built Grant Goods for. The slogan, "Made for you," suddenly felt like a lie. He thanked Derek quietly and walked away, deeply shaken. Something was wrong. Not just with Derek, but possibly with the whole system that allowed someone like him to wear the company badge. Ethan needed to see more. This couldn't be the full story. And so he headed deeper into the store, looking for answers he wasn't sure he wanted to find. Ethan wandered through the aisles with a knot in his chest. Derek's behavior wasn't just disappointing, it was humiliating. If customers were being treated like this on a regular basis, how many had he already lost without knowing? And how many more would walk out the door, silently swearing never to return? He didn't come all this way just to get mad. He wanted to understand. And so, still undercover, Ethan looked around until he spotted another employee. An older man in a navy apron, neatly folded at the waist, carefully aligning boxes. On a lower shelf, the man noticed Ethan approaching and immediately stood up with a warm, genuine smile. "Hey there, need help with something?" he asked, dusting off his hands. "Yes, actually," Ethan replied. "I'm trying to compare these light bulbs. Any idea which lasts longer?" The man took the boxes from Ethan, looked them over, and then launched into a helpful breakdown, explaining wattage, lifespan, brightness, even the best room for each type. He didn't rush. He didn't sigh or act like it was a burden. He acted like Ethan mattered. "I'm Todd," he added, nodding politely. "If you ever need help, I'm usually around this section." Ethan grinned, genuinely moved. "Thanks, Todd. You seem to really know your stuff." Todd chuckled. "Been here a while, almost 10 years. I love this place. It's like home to me, but things have been rough lately." "How so?" Ethan asked, playing dumb. Todd hesitated, but then his face softened. like he needed to get something off his chest. "We're short-staffed a lot these days. New hires come in and it's like they're just punching the clock, you know? No real interest. No pride in the work. Guys like Derek, well, I probably shouldn't say more." "You already said enough," Ethan said softly. And he meant it. Todd shook his head, sighed, and got back to work. As Ethan walked away, he kept thinking about that brief conversation. 10 years of loyalty, deep product knowledge, sincere care for customers, and yet this man was still stocking shelves while someone like Derek stood at the front, pushing customers out with every roll of his eyes. Back at corporate, Ethan would have seen clean spreadsheets. On paper, both Todd and Derek were store associates. Same title, same pay grade. But in reality, one was holding the store together, while the other slowly tore it down. By the time Ethan left the store, the sky had darkened. But his mind was crystal clear. He returned to his office not with anger, but with a mission. He spent the next 2 days poring over employee files, customer complaint logs, and performance reviews. Unsurprisingly, Derek's name came up again. And again, complaints of rudeness, disinterest, and missed shifts. Most were dismissed by the manager as minor incidents. And Todd? His file was clean, too clean. It showed that he'd been recommended for promotion several times, only to be passed over due to budget reasons. Ethan clenched his jaw. He saw now how his company's obsession with growth and cost-cutting had let people like Derek slip through while pushing real workers like Todd into the shadows. That night, Ethan wrote a memo. He wasn't done, but the wheels were turning. The next time he walked into store 213, it would be as the man whose name was printed on every box, every tag, and every door, and things were going to change. A week later, Ethan walked back into store 213, but this time he wasn't hiding. He wore his usual suit, clean-shaven, confident, and unmistakably himself. The atmosphere inside shifted the moment the employees recognized him. Whispers floated through the aisles. Phones were tucked away. Postures straightened. He called a staff meeting on the spot. The store manager scrambled to gather everyone, nerves high. Derek stood near the back, arms folded, clearly unsure of what was about to happen. Todd arrived last, wiping his hands on his apron, a confused look on his face. Ethan didn't waste time. "I started Grant Goods with one idea," he began, voice steady but laced with emotion. "To make life easier for people, not just customers but employees too. Somewhere along the way I lost sight of that." There was silence. No one dared speak. Ethan looked around the room, pausing on each face until he reached Derek's. "Last week," Ethan continued, "I came into this store undercover. I didn't tell anyone who I was. I wanted to see the truth with my own eyes. What I found was disappointing." Derek's face tightened. A few of the employees glanced at him, their expressions unreadable. "I saw rudeness, a lack of care, customers ignored, dismissed, treated like they were the inconvenience." Ethan shifted his gaze to Todd. "But I also saw integrity, kindness, patience, a man doing the job of 3 people with pride and humility. Todd, you showed me what this company was supposed to be, and I'm sorry it took this long to notice." Todd blinked. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Ethan smiled softly. "Starting today, you're promoted to assistant manager. You've more than earned it." The room erupted into applause. Even those who didn't know Todd well clapped with real respect. Todd looked overwhelmed, eyes shining, lips pressed together, to keep them from trembling. And then Ethan turned toward Derek. "This company is built on respect. If you don't have that, for customers, for your co-workers, then you don't belong here. I'm giving you a chance, Derek, but only one. Prove to me that you want to be here, that you deserve to wear this badge. Otherwise, there won't be." Another conversation. The room went quiet again. Derek nodded stiffly. He didn't argue, but his eyes betrayed a mix of embarrassment and something Ethan didn't expect: shame. After the meeting, Ethan pulled Todd aside. "Keep an eye on things for me," he said, "and on him. If he wants to change, I want you to help him, but I trust your judgment." "I will," Todd said, voice still a bit shaky. "Thank you for seeing us." Later that day, Ethan met with the regional managers and corporate leads. What happened in Store 213 wasn't an isolated event. It was a warning. A system that overlooked good people and tolerated apathy needed to be dismantled. It wasn't just about retraining employees. It was about rebuilding a culture. He ordered a full review of promotion policies, launched a new anonymous feedback system, and increased store staffing budgets across the board. He told his leadership, "If we can afford to open new stores, we can afford to care about the ones we already have." For the first time in years, Ethan felt like a CEO again, not of a brand, but of a purpose. 3 months passed, and the ripple effects of Ethan's visit were felt far beyond Store 213. Across the company, employees began noticing subtle but meaningful changes. Managers who actually listened, faster responses to issues, and promotions that finally felt earned instead of impossible. But the real story still lived inside that one suburban store where the dynamics were slowly shifting. Todd had slipped into his new role with grace. He wasn't flashy, and he didn't change who he was. Instead, he led by example, showing up early, staying late when needed, and never treating his team like they were beneath him. His first move as assistant manager wasn't to give orders, it was to start conversations. He wanted to understand everyone, even Derek. And to everyone's surprise, Derek responded. It didn't happen overnight. The first few days after Ethan's visit, Derek kept his head down and did the bare minimum. But something about the public call-out and Todd's quiet support started to get under his skin. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was the second chance he didn't expect. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the realization that for the first time, someone truly expected more from him. One afternoon, Todd found Derek staying after his shift, fixing a mislabeled aisle without being told. "You didn't have to do that," Todd said. "I know," Derek replied quietly. "I wanted to." That was the beginning of a slow transformation. Derek started showing up with a cleaner uniform. He began speaking to customers, awkwardly at first, then more naturally. He even offered to help train a new hire, something unthinkable just months earlier. Ethan heard all of this through internal updates and employee feedback channels. But he didn't return right away. He didn't need to. This time, he trusted the culture he was rebuilding and the people he was finally seeing clearly. One morning, he did show up again, but not undercover and not to inspect. He came simply to say thank you. Todd greeted him with a handshake and a smirk. "We're keeping the shelves full and the tempers low," Ethan chuckled. "That's all I can ask." As they walked the floor, Ethan noticed Derek chatting with an elderly customer, helping her compare garden tools. He looked focused, patient, present. After she walked away, Ethan approached. "You doing all right?" he asked. Derek turned, recognizing him immediately. "Yeah, I think I'm finally getting it. People remember how you treat them." Ethan nodded. "Exactly." Before he left, Ethan gathered the staff again. No big speeches this time, just appreciation. "I'm proud of what I've seen here," he said. "This store reminded me why. I started this company. It wasn't to sell towels or toasters. It was to build something people could trust. You're doing that now. Keep it going." The applause was softer this time, but it felt more real. Less about a moment, more about a movement. As Ethan walked out the doors of Store 213, he no longer felt disconnected from his business. Because the truth wasn't in the numbers or the meetings. It was here, between the aisles, in the small human details. He didn't just save a store. He saved its soul.